Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie. I'm a book-loving, notebook-hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. And this is the Get Literate podcast. On this podcast, we explore the power of leading literate lives. We talk all things books and reading, notebooks and writing, and everything in between to make our lives better. And no matter what better means to you, the pages inside books and notebooks can help us get there. So, each week, we'll mix together books, notebooks, mindful practices, and creativity to cultivate a life we love. Now, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Get Literate podcast. Today, I am here to build your TBR stacks with books just in time for Mother's Day. You know, it's funny, as I was preparing and prepping for this episode and starting to create the show notes and get ready to record, my 16-year-old daughter asked me to watch a movie with her. Now, if you have teenagers, you know that if they ask you to do something, you literally drop anything and everything you're doing to do that thing, because you just don't know when an invitation like that is going to happen again. Motherhood is so complex. It's wonderful and joyful and hard and challenging. And right now, my kids are 18 and 16 and 16. Yes, I have twins. And I sometimes wish for the days when I could just put them all into a room together with a baby gate with me and just play happily for hours together. It was exhausting back then, but it definitely feels like it was a lot simpler. I'm learning to be a parent as my kids grow. I'm not always good at it. I don't always get it right, but I always do give it everything I have. That's what mothers do, right? Whether it's a mother figure in a biological child setting, or if it's a mother figure slash caregiver to nieces and nephews and other family members, godchildren, even fur babies. Motherhood and mothering means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and that's what we're going to explore in books today. I am here with 3 books that explore motherhood in 3 very different ways. I'm excited because I haven't done a format like this, a 3-book format, in a while. It was the only thing I did on the podcast. And then when I experimented and branched out and saw how much you loved the other sorts of episodes, I've been going full steam on those. And so I'm really excited to get back to an episode that feels like the beginning with 3 books that I think you need to know about. So let's start off with the first book. Now, you might not think that this first book is a book that's explicitly focused on motherhood, but I think it's the foundational book for exploring motherhood, and I'll explain why. The first book I want to share is The Stories We Tell by Joanna Gaines. Honestly, this book is calling to us, and it's for us. It's for everyone. It's for every woman, every mother, anyone who is in the world, because it's calling for us to get quiet. It's calling for us to think about our inner selves, our innermost thoughts, the innermost child in us all, those dreams, those wishes that maybe we've kept hidden for a while, or maybe we've pushed them down for a while. It's a book to be devoured, right, and read quickly, because it's got such a clear, compelling call to action to find ourselves. But it's also a book that needs to be read really slowly and to journal alongside. If I am completely honest with you, I did have a hard time reading this book. And not why you think. I wanted to rush through it because it was so good. I loved the way Joanna writes. I loved the lyrical nature of every chapter. I loved the messages that were inside. I wanted to rush it. I wanted to rush it to get to the next chapter that always seemed to be better than the last one. I wanted to keep finding those nuggets of wisdom because I was annotating them and I was recording them in my notebook, and I wanted them all. But Joanna's writing really does beg to be savored. You need to read it and reread it and internalize it in a way that I am just not used to living. It's pretty profound, but I am not. I am not the savoring, reread, internalize kind of doer. And that was the point of this book. This is a book for everyone who wants to find themselves again by telling their story, by disrupting their automatic ways of thinking, their automatic ways of living, and just embracing stillness, embracing pause, embracing flexibility, and yes, even embracing some fun too. Now, you might be thinking, why is this a book that you feel is a foundational book for your motherhood stack today? Well, quite simply, our stories matter. Our stories matter to everything we do. And think about where those stories come from, or where those stories came from. The stories we tell are influenced by the stories our parents told themselves. And then our stories influence our children and their stories that they tell, and all of the stories of the other people who come around us. Our stories are ours, but they are so incredibly connected to those that we love, and those that we parent, and those that we mother, and those that we care for, and those that we interact with. So we must examine them. We must tell them. We must learn from them, because our stories influence theirs. And that was a really big takeaway that I got from this book. It reminded me of another book that I've just started to read called The Parenting Map by Dr. Shivali. The Parenting Map is a newer book that is focused on really a revolutionary way of parenting. The book's tagline is step-by-step solutions to consciously create the ultimate parent-child relationship. Now, if you are a podcast listener, then maybe you've heard Dr. Shafali talk recently. She's been doing the circuit as she keeps interacting with everyone on her book launch. And every time I listen to her, every time I think about this book, I think, this is a book I need. At first, I thought, well, I don't parent little people anymore. I have big people now. And I think that's why I need it. Her philosophy of parenting is different than any other philosophy that I've heard about. It's about starting with the parent, right? It's not about changing the child. It's about examining the stories the parent has and then changing the parent to better accept whatever story the child has, whether it's the one we think they should have or not. It's a big shift, and it's one that I can't wait to keep reading, because the idea behind it fits so nicely with this idea of stories and how they matter. And as moms, as parents, as caregivers, we have to give ourselves the space to tell our stories so that the child can decide what kind of stories they want for themselves without being influenced by ours in a negative way. So that's why I think The Stories We Tell by Joanna Gaines is a foundational book in a motherhood TBR stack, because our stories matter, and then everything else comes from there. That brings us to the second book that I want to share today. Things I Wish I Told My Mother by Susan Patterson and Susan DeLallo with James Patterson. This book is hot off the presses, and I was so excited to be able to get my hands on it before I saw it sell out everywhere online. This is a novel. At first, because of the title, I thought maybe it was a memoir, or I thought it was a personal development book. Things I Wish I Told My Mother, and we were going to get tips on how to build that relationship, but it wasn't. It was a novel. And it was such a propelling novel that I finished it in a single day because I had to. This book has my heart. It's on my books I've hugged list. It's on my top 10 list so far. It's that good. Now, in it, we meet Dr. Liz and Lori, a mother and daughter who set off on a vacation together to Paris and Dr. Liz's hometown, Norway, so that they can reconnect after Dr. Liz's health scare. Now, what follows is this hilarious and serious adventure in living and learning about each other. Each of the characters brings a very unique personality and way of living to the trip. We get to really see inside both of those characters, but we also get to see the ups and downs of mother-daughter relationship. And those ups and downs definitely run its course over their time together. Shocking secrets are revealed. Lots of sentiments are shared. Insights into old childhood experiences are understood. And yeah, bonds grow too. But then the reader is left in unexpected pieces because of the plot twist of a lifetime. And no, you won't see it coming. This book will make you want to call home, and it's going to make you want to hold your loved ones tight. And it's definitely going to get you thinking about that mother-child relationship, or just that mother figure-child relationship. And the twist at the end, it's going to leave you reeling for quite some time. I still can't quite get over it. And this book almost made it to a list that I had to create for this book, which was I threw the book across the room. Because I was so surprised at the end. I just couldn't handle what was there. So if that sounds like a book for you, I highly recommend you pick up Things I Wish I Told My Mother. Now, I do want to pop in a bonus book here because I talked about this book on the podcast previously. And even though I didn't talk about it specifically in relation to motherhood, I did talk about it on episode 11 of the podcast, where I shared 3 books that bend time and bend our hearts. And this book is 3 More Months by Sarah Eckever. This is a book about Chloe. She's a high-achieving workaholic who has unfortunately let work take over her entire life in lots of different ways. She's got so much guilt over the lack of time that she's given to her mother recently, so she takes a day off of work to visit her, only to learn of her mother's sudden death. Now, stricken with grief, she falls into a deep depression. She's filled with regret over her misguided attention to work and not family, and someone who tends to work a little too much. That hit me hard. But inexplicably, she wakes up on the day of her mother's funeral to find her mother in the kitchen, not a hair out of place. Questioning the reality of these turn of events, but very grateful for another chance, she makes the decisions she should have made before. She helps her mother get healthier. She spends time with her family. She repairs relationship rifts. She gets her priorities straight. But then something happens that unravels her again, but maybe that is what actually is going to bring her a little bit of peace. This is a book that definitely plays with your mind. It does bend time, but it bends time in such a way that it just grabs your heart, and you can't stop thinking about this book after you turn that last page too. So I wanted to pair it with this book because both just grabbed my heart and kept tugging. And if you want to know a little bit more about this book, you might go back to episode 11 and take a listen to that, as along with the 2 other books that are wonderful to bend time and hearts. Now, moving on to our 3rd book. So far, we have The Stories We Tell by Joanna Gaines, laying the foundations of how important our stories matter and how our stories can influence other stories. Then we have a fiction book about those stories of motherhood, seeing how it plays out with a mother-daughter combination on vacation together. And now I want to talk about a memoir. Oh, this memoir. It definitely is going to get you thinking about motherhood in ways I'm going to assume you haven't thought of before, because likely you haven't experienced motherhood and mothering and being a daughter in this way. This memoir was raw, it was honest, and quite frankly, it was shocking. This book is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Just as we cannot judge a book by its cover, we cannot truly know a person from their public persona. My own children and me loved watching Jeanette McCurdy as Sam in iCarly. And honestly, we adopted a weekly spaghetti taco tradition as a result of watching the show together. But underneath that cute, perky, happy personality that many of us have come to love was a girl that was struggling. She was struggling under the weight of her mother's very unhealthy expectations, very unhealthy emotions. She was struggling with a long battle with an eating disorder, and she was definitely struggling with a life that she just didn't feel good living. This girl had a lot going on, from unhealthy family relationships to a house where the family members were hoarders and she had trouble finding space to make her own, to the unrealistic expectations about her becoming an actress, something she didn't even want to do. She wanted to write instead. This book chronicles that entire journey. And I think readers, you'll be entranced right from the beginning and ultimately cheering Jenna on with every page, or cheering Jeanette on with every page. Now, there are a lot of things that I would say could trigger people. So you might want to take a closer look at the book to see if this is a book for you. There are a lot of things in here that this little girl went through in order to get to the person she is today, who is definitely stronger and happier and healthier. But the way that she writes about her relationship with her mother is striking, because there is so much in her life that her mother says and does and embraces and pushes on her that is just plain old wrong, borderline abusive, and even actually abusive. But the love that this girl has for her mother and the bond that she has to her mother, regardless of all of that, I was just entranced by it. At times, I couldn't understand it. At times, I was angry at the mother. At times, I was angry at Jeanette for not seeing what was going on. And throughout the book, though, what it did make me do, whether that was in a positive way or a negative way or a confusing way or a heartbreaking way, was get me to think about motherhood, the relationship that I have with my own mother, the relationship that I have with each of my three kids. So even though it wasn't a warm and fuzzy motherhood story, right? It's certainly different from the message of the stories we tell. It does show that we got to tell those stories. It does show that our stories impact our kids' stories. It does show how one person struggles to break free of those stories and make them their own. It is just such a powerful book. It has wonderful reviews. It's one of the Goodreads Choice Awards books, and I can see why. That's I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Now, I wanted to just throw in one more memoir, if I could, because this is a memoir. This is actually, if I had to pick just one memoir that I've read. Oh, can I pick two? If I had to pick two memoirs that I've read that are my favorites, this is one. What We Carry by Maya Shambag Lang is one of my top two. If you're wondering what the other one is, it's Zibby Owens's memoir, Bookends. So What We Carry is beautifully written. And it's beautifully written, and it gives you this highly addictive avalanche of emotions from cover to cover. I came into the book expecting to gain insight into Maya's life and her relationship with her mother, right? That's what our theme is about. I was hopeful that if I could learn from her stories, I could better rewrite my own stories. Oh, but instead, I got so much more. I just didn't get information about the bonds of motherhood. I gained insight into my own life, my own expectations, my own relationship, my own sense of motherhood and mothering too. I laughed, I cried some more, as Maya just seemed to speak directly to me, leaving me with lessons right on the page that I just couldn't escape. I really don't have many more words to adequately state how much this book impacted me, so I'm just going to leave you thinking about this. This memoir forever changed how I view myself, my own mother, motherhood, and the tangled bonds that are woven between each. It's that powerful. So that's What We Carry by Maya Schonbag Lane. And if you are a person who enjoys memoirs, then I think you should add this little bonus book to your stack as well. All right, there you have it. 3 books plus a few bonus recommendations to explore motherhood and get us ready to celebrate Mother's Day. The Stories We Tell by Joanna Gaines, Things I Wish I Told My Mother, and I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. You know what? I've missed these kinds of episodes. I've missed sitting here and sharing 3 books on a particular topic that really resonate in the stack. Did you? I would love for you to give me some feedback. Tell me what you think about these 3 book episodes and the kinds of episodes that you enjoy. And I'll enter you into a giveaway to win one of my book journals for you and another book journal for your mother or a mother figure that you hold dear in your life. So just let's say direct message me on social media. I'm Afanita Lit, or you could go ahead and comment on the social media post for this episode. Or as always, you can head to the show notes and leave a comment on the website there. Every comment you leave will get you 1 entry into the giveaway. And at the end of the week, I'll go ahead and pick the winners so that they are mailed off just in time for Mother's Day. So that's it for me today. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week and happy reading. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing lives, like bonus podcast episodes, book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking challenges, live events, giveaways, and much more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all the previous content too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. But one more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and no bookish community too. Thanks so much for listening.